Guys, I am here to get into a character analysis of Shortcuts, which is directed by Robert Altman, released the year 1993, and stars Annie McDowell, who's just very profound in her vulnerability to this devastating impact that the ordinary sort of this depiction kind of has. Her world is just shattered whenever she realizes the extent of danger that her son's in, and she's just kind of portrayed as this very devoted sort of mother character, which ultimately makes this a very heartbreaking mother and child dynamic at display. And she just increasingly struggles to cope with this whole scenario, which makes for a frighteningly intense moment of devastation. McDowell just offers this raw portrayal all throughout. As Bruce Davidson's very polished and you can tell he's very just emotionally attached kind of TD personality, who just kind of gets into these horrible circumstances between just seeing his son go through all this danger, and then you can tell he's just particularly having a tough time processing all these intense emotions as they unfold. He also kind of, to get a later, you have Jack Lemmon, who plays his father, Davidson's father, and he's just kind of just this deeply crooked sort of aging man who's he seems like he's just out to confront his past by way of that he had previously abandoned his son Davidson. He's out to kind of attempt to rekindle all of this. And Robert Altman just depicts a really powerful monologue sequence. Takes about 6 minutes, and you can just tell this guy's at an absolute desperation to have a hint of redemption in his life, and kind of feels like he just wasted away all this time and just desperately yearns for closure to all of that. And yet he just drops all this on Davison as he's about the worst timing possible, as he's already just kind of going through all this madness with his son. And Lemon just ultimately portrays this character as an extremely awkward one, and there's a lot of mystique value towards whether there's how much sincerity there is to how he portrays all of this. And you have Tim Robbins, who's a very just smug, just little abrasive, insecure kind of police officer character who just displays a lot of arrogance, and it makes for a very desperate kind of portrayal to always he has to have power at all times, and he kind of feels like he's one of the most unlikable rotten. Although the film strangely kind of meets him full circle and to have an understanding of his art. And Julia Moore is a very complex sort of painter character. He just kind of reveals a lot of insecurity by way of just a raw emotional outburst. As you're just arguing with Matthew Modine, and yeah, she very intense kind of insecure sort of moment. And Tom Waits is heavy drinking, very depressed kind of character who kind of just desires to get out of just misery. He kind of feels like his life is in a miserable position, and there's just not really a way out of it. And really, Tomlin's a down to earth kind of balance between realism and dark comedy. That's Waits' wife in this story. And she retains hopeful spirits by way of just kind of finding joy in small moments. Her dynamics with Wade is very complex, yet there is kind of like this perfect bond of chemistry and understanding between the two. And then Fred Ward is this character. He's very self-absorbed, and he just seems like he just never really processes quite the influence that he leaves on other people. And Chris Penn, he's particularly a disturbing arc, I feel like, is he's a pool cleaner, and all that seems ordinary. Yep, there's just a suppressed extent of hidden rage and frustration that's boiling over him at all times, and it's very subtle. There's an arc where eventually he just kind of gets into some really shocking acts, which sincerely happens out of nowhere. It's a very unpredictable character arc all around, one of the most strange and mysterious I've ever seen. As for Penn is ultimately a naked everman, he just kind of boils past any point of return, just almost just do the most everyday sort of things, like just these little moments just kind of build up the mountain of something huge. Yeah, Frances McDormand, a single mother, struggles to navigate through hardship, but she presents just this really original kind of character. She just feels very unstable all around, and it's a very different shade of McDormand than I've seen her anywhere else. Madeline Stowe's very complex. She just seems very detached, has all those intensity bruises. She's Robin's wife, and you can just tell she's just extremely, just in a detached way about all of it. And Jennifer Jason Leigh is a very complex character who just always seems like she's overworked as a phone sex operator, which just makes her relationship with Penn really distant. And you can tell that's serving as a great deal of disturbance towards Penn. Her scenes kind of have some dark comedy moments, yet it ultimately just portrays something that feels extremely lonely. And then Anna Archer, just a very sensitive kind of party clown character. Some great moments there. And then Modine is this doctor character who obsessively confronts Moore, and I'm just kind of getting into some arguments about past affairs that she may have had, which just reveals all kinds of deep-seated insecurity. And you got Lily Taylor. You don't really see her much, but she's the daughter of Tomlin and Waits. Robert Downey Jr. is this makeup artist. Peter Gallagher is just very arrogant and destructive sort of ex-husband to McDormand. Then you have Huey Lewis, just a very self-absorbed kind of character, and supposedly it said that there's a lot of classic moments with them in all of this, and especially when he's taking a leak in the pool. Supposedly the band Metallica saw his eaters, and this scene had him laughing so much. I always loved that story. Alex Trebek just appears as just this ultimate Yeah, he just kind of feels like he's the most famous guy in the world in this film, and that's wonderful how it's all portrayed. You have Lyle Lovett as a baker who just gets right in the middle of this unfortunate sort of scenario, which just goes completely misunderstood. He doesn't know what kind of trouble he's dealing with by way of Davis and McDowell grieving their son, and it's just like he's right in the middle of it. Lori Singer is this classical cellist who's very talented and also very isolated, and she wrestles plenty with suicidal tendencies that she's unable to connect with her mother ultimately. And Anne Ross is the mother. She's just a singer, seems very detached, and she just kind of ends up gradually getting a reality check through this arc. And all this just makes her just quite a original and insane sort of character piece, ensemble piece from start to finish. And one of Altman's most mesmerizing projects, and just one of the greatest films of the '90s all around. It's mesmerizing.